Değerli misafirler, kısa bir aranın ardından yeniden birlikteyiz. Tekrar hatırlatmak istiyorum. Herkes yerleştiyse devam edeceğiz kongremize. YouTube üzerinden canlı yayındayız. ÇEVKOKongre.com adresinden izleyicilerimiz bizi takip ediyorlar. Twitter üzerinden de bize merak ettiklerinizi ÇEVKO Kongre hashtag ile iletebilirsiniz diye bir hatırlatma yaparak devam edelim programımıza. Belediye atıkları yönetiminde en iyi uygulama örnekleri konulu sunumunu yapmak üzere ISWA International Solid Waste Association Teknik Başkanı Bayan Kata Tissa'yı sahneye davet ediyorum.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here. I'm very honored to be a part of this discussion. Thank you for the organizers. And I'm from the International Solid Waste Association. We are head office in Vienna, Austria. I'd like to talk about best practices in municipal waste management and also some underlying principles. It's always good to start with a quote, and so this analogy I really like, that a good solid waste management system is like good health. Once you have it, it's great and you take it for granted, but as soon as you stop having it or you don't have it, you realize what kind of a contrast it makes and how much you need it for your life quality. To demonstrate these two extremes, there is a picture about the Danube River in Vienna, and on the left you can see the Mzimbazi River in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. I don't think I have to add any other comments to that. Just to take a general look at the problem, ISWA and UNEP has recently launched the Global Waste Management Outlook, which is the first of its kind report. It gives an assessment on the global waste situation, and it also gives a very useful toolkit for mainly decision makers on how to tackle the problems and issues. There is an estimated number of 7 to 10 billion tons of urban solid waste generated each year, of which 24% accounts for the municipal solid waste. This is 2 billion tons of solid waste we have to deal with every year. It's quite a number. On the top of this, 2 or 3 billion people don't have access to proper waste management systems, that is, starting with collection to a normal engineered landfill even. Most of this generated waste, of the 2 billion tons, is generated in developed industrialized countries. However, this number will shift to the south in the future. In Europe, we have a very wide range of generated waste per year, municipal solid waste. It ranges from 207 kilograms per year per capita up until 750 kilograms per capita per year, that's in Switzerland. Moving on to waste treatment, we can see the EU 28 here and the US. And we can see that different countries have different levels of waste treatment. On the left of the graph, you can see countries with well-integrated waste management systems, countries practically without landfilling. And we can ask how these countries can have such a high performance on waste management compared to countries on the right side, which are mainly disposing or landfilling waste. So I would like to give a really short introduction on what I think are the key factors for these high-performing countries in having such a nice solid waste management system. And I'm sure most of the speakers after me are going to address some or the other parts of this, so I would like to just scan these points through basically. First of all, it's governance. All these countries have a mixture of policy instruments directly targeting waste and also other social and economic factors of waste management or aspects of waste management. They have a very established national and local framework law, and they are enforcing this law. There are clear roles and responsibilities and a very effective communication also on the vertical and also on the horizontal levels. Well-managed, well-resourced, and well-supplied waste departments are a necessity also in municipalities, and capacity building has to be an ongoing basis. There need to be long-term strategies agreed on and enforced, and also it's very ideal if it's supported by a data collection system and transparent system which is available for all the key stakeholders. Secondly, there's financial management of waste management systems. As it has already been mentioned by Mr. Undersecretary and by also the next two presenters, it is quite important to account for the costs and revenues which are available from a certain system. And we have to know how much the income is and what we can return into the system. Sometimes it goes down to a very basic project management level. Eventually, someone has to pay, so it is quite important to have an appropriate financing model and find sources for funding for investment. Also, disposal has to have a price. It is debated what's the lowest price for disposal. I would say in these high-performing countries, it's about 30 euro per ton. And it's a nice example on the right, which you see from the UK. Landfill taxes were raised over a 10-year period. And you can see the interlinkage of the raise of landfill taxes and the improvement of recycling and also composting. It has to be noted that cost recovery has to be made gradually so that we can account for all those who can't immediately pay for the system. On the long term, municipalities have to think of transferring at least some costs of managing end-of-life products to the producers. Technical management is also a very key aspect. It ranges from choosing the right technology, which can be the best available technology or the most suitable technology according to the local conditions. And it also needs to have an optimization and a monitoring and ongoing feedback from the system, so that resources and capacities can be optimally shared, and also optimization can be on the micro level, which means optimization of routes acquiring significant economic benefit. I put overall coordination as the fourth point, which entails ensuring equal access for everyone to very basic waste management activities. And also it's very important to have mutually beneficial partnerships established within the municipalities or with other key stakeholders, so can be public-private partnerships. Of course, the systems have to be monitored and controlled by the municipalities, and it's very important to include the community and to also decision-making and include the community into contributing to this waste management systems. Awareness raising, last but not least, it can be emphasized enough. Awareness raising is something we can't neglect. It's quite hard to monitor the outcomes sometimes. I'll give you an example later on in my city case study of Milan, but it is indeed a very important factor. I'd like to provide some insights into two cities, first of all Vienna and secondly Milan. And let's take some look at Vienna first. Vienna has 1.7 million inhabitants, and it ranges over an area of more than 400 kilometers square. It has something like 860,000 households which generate solid waste on a daily basis. You can see that the city generates 1.1 million tons of waste per year, which is treated on the following way. 62% goes to waste to energy recovery, 22% is recycled, 9% is composted, and only 7% is landfilled. The next slide gives us insight into the separate collection history of Vienna. It started about 30 years ago, and I think it's very apparent that it didn't really happen overnight. There is a progression of the system, and this, the levels nowadays have been reached over a longer time and with applying the complexity of tools and instruments, political, economic, and social. There are two main approaches in waste management in Vienna: separate collection of recyclables and the thermal treatment of the residual waste. We can see here a number of waste bins shaped differently according to the requirements of certain neighborhoods. For example, in older houses, there is a lack of space, so you would use a 220-liter volume bin. And in newer residential areas where there is more space, you would use a bin with 770 liters. Taking a look into the collection schemes of Vienna, we can see that it is again a mixture. Organics are collected mainly by backyard collection, but there is also curbside collection of them, and recycling centers are also accepting organic waste, whereas glass, metal, plastic waste are mainly collected through curbside collection and recycling centers. Hazardous waste and waste of electric and electronic devices is collected through a mobile system. I think it's quite important to emphasize here that citizens take their share of contribution to these systems, so they are not only served by the municipalities, but they also contribute actively with a different activity or a different level of activity for the different schemes. Bulky waste is collected in 18 recycling centers throughout the city, and it accounts for 18% of the generated waste, which is a 96 kilogram per person per year. Let's move on to the waste treatment, which is also done by the municipality, by the way. The municipality has a company called MA48, which is doing all the collection and the treatment of waste. The treatment of residual waste, which is a 650,000 ton per annum amount of waste, happens through 4 incinerators after a mechanical treatment of the waste. After the incineration process, the slags are going to be treated and separated, and a compile of the slags and fly ashes is going to the landfill in Rautenweg in Vienna, next to Vienna. Treatment of bio-waste happens in 2 ways. Bio-waste from outer districts, which is basically green waste, it goes to a composting plant. It's 115 tons per annum of input waste and generates 35,000 tons of yearly high-quality compost, which is either distributed through recycling centers, it goes to organic farming, or it's sold as potting soil. Kitchen waste, on the other hand, which is collected from the inner districts, goes to anaerobic digestion and serves as a district heating input material. This is a picture of an incineration plant in Vienna, and it's nice to see how they renovated the building, so waste management also can involve some arts. The waste treatment plants are, as you can see, located quite close to each other. There is a high level of self-sufficiency for the city, and the distances are very short, and the treatment plants are quite accessible. I think that's a very key factor of the city's success. As for the financials, there is different waste types which are financed by different methods. You can see that the diversion between residual waste, bio-waste, hazardous waste, bulky waste, and non-packaging waste, which are financed by waste fees and waste taxes, and financed by the households mainly. And on the other hand, there's packaging waste, electric and electronic equipment waste, and used vehicles, and also batteries, which are financed by the producers and on a unit or a volume basis through EPR systems. This slide basically gives the same idea, except for it makes a difference between producer responsibility systems, a shared system, and the full producer responsibility system. I won't go into details here because I'm sure some of the next presenters will talk about this in particular. There is a waste fee charged for from all citizens, which covers basically all the collection of all waste pathways. And this fee is united with other utility fees, so it's kind of hard not to pay it because it's a combined structure of fees. The next case study, the city of Milan. I think it's a quite interesting case study because the city has a recent success story of an increased waste recycling through its composting system, which was introduced in 2012. Let's take a look at the figures first. The city has 1.3 million inhabitants, and it's quite on a small space. It's spread out only on 182 square kilometers. So the city faces a couple of issues, such as lack of space, traffic jamming, and of course the high population density resulting from all that. Waste collection systems in Milan, they have a mixture of waste collection systems. Door-to-door collection with bins and transparent bags recently, which proved to be a very good method. They have waste collection points, they have bring banks, they have bulky waste collection either coming to your house or being on the road level. They have civic amenity size, bins for streets and parks. And so the door-to-door collection system was applied to the organic waste, which has several benefits. For example, the high quality of the waste collected, and of course, reduced pollution and higher appealingness of the city. The Italian household packaging system is set up by law, by Italian law, and it's compulsory both for citizens and industry. It is implemented by a non-profit packaging consortium, which is called CANLI, which also helps recover other types of individual waste streams, such as aluminum or metal. Milan collects all 6 main packaging materials and has its own glass sorting plant, and all other treatment plants are industrial plants. This is the cycle of packaging and food waste recycling in the city. This is basically what I already have explained. After waste production, the waste will be collected through an integrated system with a mixture of methods, and it will be sorted and recycled, and the organic waste will go to anaerobic digestion. I'll skip this slide of these systems and go to the results of separate collection rates in Milan. You can see the history here as well. From 1993, Milan was actually one of the cities similar to Napoli, which struggled with a lot of waste management issues. They had extensive masses of waste on their streets in the 1990s, and they tried to introduce separate waste collection 2 times. They failed, and for the 3rd time, it became a success story basically, and over 20 years, now they just managed to go above 50% with their separate collection and recycling rates. They apply carrot and stick principle to it, so they reward those citizens who contribute to the system, and those who are not willing to contribute, they have to face a fine. Separate collection trends in Milan in the past 4 years for all the separately collected waste streams. You can see here the growing tendency as well. And you can see that the city still has some numbers, still has some challenges to comply with the EU regulations. There is also efforts for waste prevention and awareness raising. It was an extensive awareness raising what the city already has done for collecting of the organic waste, and they have studies about it. It was significantly contributing to the success of the collection system, but there is still some projects on that in the future. Just a recap of the key aspects of good municipal solid waste management. We have to have clear objectives, clear legislation, clear responsibilities, transparency of the system, a good financial planning and management, good capacity, technically and managerial capacity, apply the best technologies or the best suitable technologies, and build effective partnerships and apply producer responsibility schemes. That is just my last comment on best practices, which are not necessarily best practices for all. So maybe sometimes we have to rather go for the good enough practices in order to have local solutions, combining small-scale solutions with large-scale solutions. I'm not sure that it's always the high-end technologies, which are solutions for all countries. So I think there has to be an ongoing discussion about this, applying all the local capacity and also looking at best practices from all over the world. Thank you very much for your attention, and you find the link to our organization there and also to the Global Waste Management Outlook, which is, I think, a very good read if you would like to take a look and bigger insight into the global waste situation, and also if you would like to get familiar with the toolkit which was provided by the report, and it's very useful for policymakers. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to have questions.
Evet, değerli konuklar, Bayan Katatitsa'ya çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Thank you so much. Aslında çok önemli konulardan bahsetti Bayan Katatitsa. Hem üreticilerin hem de yurttaşların bu konudaki hassasiyetleri, yani sorumluluklarına gösterdikleri hassasiyetlerinden bahsetti. Zannediyorum bu konuşmanın içinde en çok bizim de örnek almamız gereken kısım burasıydı diye düşünüyorum. Aynı zamanda çözümler noktasında da herkesin yerel çözümlerini, kendi bireysel çerçevesini belirleyip bu noktadan hareket etmesi gerektiği yönündeki notları da önemli diğer notlarından biriydi. Ve ayrı toplamanın atık yönetimi verimliliğine etkileri konulu sunumunu yapmak üzere bu kez CEMR, The Council of European Municipalities and Regions temsilcisi Bay Christoph de Lederer'ı sahneye davet ediyorum.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is not my first time in your country. I've been a couple of times to Turkey already. And as you can see from the colors of my tie, I am extremely happy and honored to be back in your beautiful country. So thank you very much for the people of ÇEVKO for the invitation. On a daily basis, as you can see from the slide, I work for an association which is called VVSG. That is the Association of Flemish Cities and Municipalities. And we advise and represent the local authorities in my country. But we also negotiate on behalf of the Flemish municipalities with producer responsibility organizations. So the system as it exists today in my country is the direct result of negotiations in which I have been involved over the past 15 years. Today, I will be speaking to you on behalf of CEMR, which is the Council of European Municipalities and Regions. CEMR is the umbrella organization of all the associations within Europe of municipalities and cities. And they are very active on the European level, also when it comes to European policy. And they're also very active on waste management policy. I'm a member of their waste expert group. We meet once or twice a year with all colleagues from Europe to discuss the new European legislation which is coming our way. I was asked by the organizers to speak briefly on the advantages of separate collection of municipal solid waste. And basically, I don't think we should speak about advantages, but maybe rather of necessities. Because if you know this graph, I do not know if you have seen it before, but what it represents is the presence of some critical elements. Elements we need on a daily basis. We don't always think about it, but what you can see here in the light color coming away from the center is how many years are left of a certain critical element in our resources. And in the darker color is how many years are left if all of us started to consume at half the rate of the citizens of the United States. And those citizens of the United States are only a small group on the global population. And just to give you some ideas, antimony is something which is used in medication. The predictions are that we still have enough antimony left for the next 30 years. So many of us will probably witness the end of antimony as a resource. If all of us start to use antimony at the same rate as the citizens of the United States, then there is only enough left for 13 years. Remember, this is something we use in medication. Another example, gallium, which is used in LED lights. We have enough gallium left for the next 10 years, and then it's over. Today, 0% of gallium worldwide is recycled. Indium is also a material which is used in solar panels. We absolutely need it. Renewable energy is very important. We have enough left for the next 10 years, and then it's finished. Today, the recycling rate of indium is 0%. This graph shows what the waste production is today, and the darker the color, the higher the waste production. And you can see that especially Western Europe, United States, Australia has a very high level of waste production, but many of other countries in South America, in Asia and Africa, waste production today as we speak is quite low, because consumption is much lower than in countries in Western Europe. But I can assure you that the economical growth and the way in which the consumption rate is growing in those countries is dramatical. So we can be perfectly sure that within the next couple of 10, 20, 30 years, we will encounter the first problems with shortage in certain resources. Just to prove that the problem will get bigger, what you see here on this graph is the quantity of waste being produced per capita linked to the gross national product of a country. And you can see that when the GDP of a country rises, also the quantity of waste which is produced by a country is also rising very quickly. You can see where Turkey is now. Turkey is somewhere in the middle, and we all know that the economical growth of Turkey is quite impressive. So I think if we want to continue, if we want to keep the same level of welfare, there will be an absolute need for an ambitious waste management policy. Now, who will take care of it for us? Who will do it? Can we expect it from the consumers? Every time when you go in the shopping mall and you walk through the products, when you pick something from the racks, do you think, am I now making the right choice for the environment? Ask yourself the question, and I think you have the answer to the first question. Will it come from the producers? I think last week we saw another beautiful example of how, when it really becomes important, economic profit is always put over ecological results. Big car companies have no problem at all in fooling not only the consumers but also fooling governments when it comes to the pollution caused by their products. NGOs have many good ideas and play an important role, but let's be honest, their resources are limited, so we will not have to wait until NGOs come with all the conclusions. Will central governments take care of the problem? Well, I was just speaking about emissions by cars. This was something which was controlled by central governments. Let's say that the result was not something to be proud of. In the end, I think it is quite simple. You have to consider the Earth as a spaceship. We are merely travelers on spaceship Earth. And can you imagine yourself being in a spaceship and throwing waste all over the place? I think none of us would ever consider that idea. None of us would think about going into space in a spaceship and not think about what will we eat, what will we drink, what will we do with all of the excrements and all of the waste that we produce. Well, for some reason, we are all of us together on planet Earth and we do not think about it. So the solution will come from all the stakeholders who will have to cooperate, but we, my association and also the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, are strongly convinced that local authorities, that municipalities will play a central role in this. Don't forget, I'm now speaking about resource management, but the whole thing of waste management, it started from a public health perspective. We were collecting waste and taking care of it because it was causing all kinds of plagues. And this is something we still have to remember. Public health should never be overlooked. If we want to protect the environment, there is a cost involved. And in the end, it's us as taxpayers and as consumers who are going to pay this cost. Always. I'm going to give you some figures a bit later on what kind of cost you can expect. We want sustainable development. Trees do not grow into the skies, and it's the same with economy. If we want a good economy in the long term, it will have to be sustainable also for itself, also when it comes to polluting the environment and the use of resources. And doing nothing, clearly, is not an option. Just to prove the crucial role that public authorities will play and prove the importance of public intervention in waste and resource management policy. In the 1950s, there was a big strike in Ireland by the bankers. The bankers were very unhappy and they went on strike and they thought that they would take hostage the full economy of Ireland. No banks were open, no money was being distributed, so how can you imagine trade going on when there is no more money going around? It took about 1 week for the public to come with solutions, to come back to old recipes like trade. I will get the product from you, in exchange you get something from me. And after 6 months, the economy was still working as it was supposed to work, and the bankers stopped the strike because they saw that it was not helping them in getting their point proven. In that same year, in Dublin, the waste collectors went on strike. And after 3 days, the city of Dublin was drowning in waste. And immediately, a solution had to be found. Now, I still don't understand why a banker earns more money than a waste collector, but it proves at least that you need local democratic accountability, you need people that you can address very easily, very quickly, and that can come up with solutions for waste management problems. So, yes, local authorities have an important role to play, and they have to come with solutions that are based on the local needs. There is no such thing, Kata rightly said it, there are best practices, but there is no such thing like the magic formula that you can implement in any city. And that's why you need local politicians taking decisions on creating a system that is based on local needs and on local circumstances. And that municipalities bear the responsibility in waste management, it is a success factor in different European countries. And therefore CMR took a position that said, look, local authorities have a major role to play when it comes to waste management because they are close to the citizens, they are democratically accountable, they can put a focus where it should be on measures at source, they can put a focus on waste prevention, they can put a focus on creating a system that allows sorting as soon as possible. 2 words are important if you think about recycling. Never forget them. Quantity and quality. If I want to put a recycled product on the market, I need a certain flow of a certain material, quantity, certain volumes. And also, a producer will always look at the right quality of the material. The best way to get this, rightly said by some of the speakers before me, is to try to collect it as early as possible. That's where you get the highest quantities in the best quality. And there is a strong link in cooperation between municipalities and producer responsibility schemes. Cooperation between those two is key. Cooperation based on contracts which clearly state how producer responsibility schemes and municipalities will communicate together, on how they will organize the collection for the citizen, but also on how the whole thing will be financed. I think the goal of producer responsibility is to internalize the full cost so that I, as a consumer, I pay the environmental cost at the moment when I buy a product, and now not when I throw it away. That should be the general principle that should be applied. This municipal responsibility is something that you find all over Europe. I will not go through the list, but here you see just some of the countries in which the practical organization, the practical political, financial, juridical responsibility for household waste management is put in the hands of the municipalities. And yes, municipalities are often too small to do certain things. It is not normal that every municipality would have its own landfill or its own waste incinerator, but this is solved in many countries through intermunicipal cooperation, making sure that the municipalities have everything in hand and can set up an integrated waste management policy. Intermunicipal cooperation has another benefit. It takes out politics of the equation, because you put local governments with different political majorities together. You put them back in the same spaceship, and they have to take common shared decisions on a long-term policy. And yes, in all of these countries, private companies play a huge role, and there is a huge benefit in cooperation with private companies, but it always happens under the supervision of the local authorities. Now, you can ask yourself as a local politician, this is a big hustle, why should I act? This is a big cost for me as a municipality, why should I take initiative as a local authority? Well, I would like to refer to the report that Kata also mentioned, the report done by UNEP and ISWA. Don't think that you as a local politician can get away from that cost. The report proved that the cost of doing nothing, the cost of business as usual, is 5 to 10 times higher than a swift investment in a good waste management policy. You can think that a landfill is cheap. A landfill is never cheap, because someday will come the time when you will have to clean it up. You have these things like public health, groundwater getting polluted, and someday this bill will come to you and it will be much higher than the cost of investing in a good waste management policy today as we speak. I've been speaking about resources. I have not mentioned the word climate yet, or carbon dioxide. I'm sure that also in Turkey there is a lot going on in trying to abate greenhouse gas emissions. Do you know that a good waste management, not opting immediately for waste to energy, but recovering materials as a resource and putting them back into the industry, it can help you to reduce greenhouse gases by 15 to 20%. I'm absolutely convinced that we can reach a large part of the climate goals by investing immediately in good waste management policy, and that is also something you should consider. Now, I read a report on the plane coming here. It was a report that dated from 2010 about the situation in Turkey, and to be perfectly honest, I did not get too optimistic when I read the report. If you just looked at almost half of the waste was going into non-sanitary, non-compliant landfills, I'm really afraid that the costs in Turkey in the long term could be very high for cleaning up all of those sites. I noticed that there is no real integrated policy. There is a dispersed responsibility between different levels of local government, which is causing all kinds of problems, dispersed responsibilities when it comes to collection, treatment, and also clearly there's a lack of cooperation between municipalities and producer responsibility organizations. So there is a long way to go, and you can ask yourself, can we as municipalities, can we make the difference? And to quote a well-known president, yes, you can. And I'm just going to prove it to you with some figures of the region where I come from. I come from Flanders, which is the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. That is where it is situated. I think most of you know it's the blue part of Belgium that you can see on the map. It is, like Vienna and Milan, as a region, it is very densely populated, more than 450 inhabitants per square kilometer. We not only have many people, but they consume a lot. Our GDP is quite high. We have very intensive agriculture. As you can see in my region, you have almost the same number of pigs as you have people. No link between the two. So there is a very high pressure on land use in Flanders. Very little space and a lot of things going on. A lot of people, a lot of agriculture, but also a lot of industry. Did you know that after Houston, Texas, the city of Antwerp in Flanders is the second highest concentration of petrochemical industry in the world? Did you know that? More than 25% of Europeans' HDPE is produced in Antwerp, is produced in Flanders. So we have all of these things going on in this small area. So waste was a problem, and we had to do something about it. And we set up an ambitious waste management policy 20 years ago. And the situation today is that the results of our policy are very high. We have some of the best results in Europe. We have a very extensive service, a very extensive system, which is organized by the municipalities, in which we have doorstep collection of lots of recyclable waste streams from house to house, combined with a dense network of civic amenity sites, of which you can see a picture, where people can bring waste under supervision of municipal staff. There is more than one such site on average per municipality. Gave us a very high recycling rate, but even more impressive, since 2006, there is no more landfilling of household waste in Flanders. No more waste is going onto landfills. Here you see the evolution expressed. If you want to compare years to each other, it's always important to express it in kilograms per inhabitant per year. And the black line is the total quantity of waste produced per inhabitant per year from 1991 until 2013. And you can see that it was rising until the beginning of the year 2000. Since then it has stabilized, and now it is dropping. So waste prevention policies are presenting results. The red line is the waste that is not collected separately. And as you can see, it dropped very strongly, let's say, in the 1990s. And the green line is what we collect separately. And you can see that it has risen dramatically. And if I put it in figures, we are now at a situation in Flanders where 71% of the household waste is collected separately and is going to recycling and composting. And what is left over is 148 kilograms per inhabitant per year that is collected, and all of that is incinerated in R1 waste incineration facilities with energy recovery. And it is important to say that in my country, we never consider incineration to be a form of recycling. You can burn a resource only once, and then it is gone. You can ask yourself, well, such an ambitious policy, many waste streams being collected, this must cost a large amount of money. I can tell you today that in Flanders, the average cost of the whole system is €200 per household per year. If I combine this with what we pay on an annual basis for mobile phone and stuff like that, it is a very low amount of money per family per year. €200 is the cost, paid through municipal taxes, through pay-as-you-throw schemes. In my country, you have to pay linked to the quantity of waste that you put on the street, and a part of it is also paid by producers. So if we have to look forward, and if we have to look at the benefits of separate collection, I would say it can be done. Flanders is proving that it can be done, and I'm absolutely convinced if we can do it, that Turkey also can do it. The possibilities of this country are way bigger than the possibilities of my country. So it can be done. Be ambitious, aim for low-hanging fruit, go step by step, and I'm sure you will get to good results at some time. Make sure that you have clear responsibilities. Which government of level should take care of what, and make that number of government levels as small as possible. Have only 2 levels of government bear responsibilities, and have the lowest level of governance, municipalities, make them responsible for the operational organization of the household waste management. If you introduce sorting systems, try to get the waste as soon as possible. I do not believe in large plants in which we put one big mix of waste and then try to pick out things. It's like trying to recover carrots and peas from a vegetable stew. You will only get water and a mix, but you will never get the carrots and the peas. The cost for a good waste management system might seem high as we speak, but look at it as an investment for the future. If you do not do the investment now, the cost will be higher in the long term. You need a good policy, you need patience. It also took us 20 years' time to come at the results where we are today. And you will need to use a mix of instruments, policy instruments, financial instruments like landfill taxes, like pay-as-you-throw schemes in which every individual family feels the financial impact of producing waste, but also producer responsibility, making consumers pay at the moment when they buy a product and not when they throw it away. Social instruments, communication, and legal instruments, which include also punishing misbehavior, because those people who are still littering or those who are running a landfill which is non-compliant should finally also bear the cost of what they are doing. I would like to thank with this for your attention, and if you ever need any more information, this is my email address. Feel free to contact me also after this conference. I would be happy to provide you with more information should you be interested in receiving this. Teşekkür ederim.
Evet, biz de size teşekkür ediyoruz Bay Christophe de Leder. Yine çok önemli notlardan bahsetti. Ayrı toplamanın atık yönetimi verimliliğine etkileri noktasında Bay Christophe de Leder özellikle yaptırım konusunda ve iyi bir sistem kurulduktan sonra bunu siz de başarabilirsiniz dedi. Eğer istersek yapabiliriz, evet biz de yapabiliriz bunu. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz tekrar kendisine. Ve değerli konuklar, değerli izleyiciler, bu arada birkaç hatırlatma yapacağım. YouTube üzerinden canlı yayındayız ve Twitter üzerinden ÇEVKO Kongre hashtag ile bize sorularınızı iletebiliyorsunuz. Yoğun bir soru trafiği var. Hemen şunu hatırlatalım, sorularınız cevapsız kalmayacak. Programımızın ikinci bölümündeki panelde değerli konuşmacılarımıza sunumlarına ilişkin sorularınızı iletebileceksiniz yine kongre süresince. Ve bu arada bütün sunumların tekrarını da ÇEVKOKongre.com adresinden etkinlik sonunda hepsini izleyebilirsiniz diyelim. Ve bir sonraki konuşmacımıza geçelim. Avrupa'da belediye atıkları yönetimi konulu sunumunu yapmak üzere bu kez ACR, Association of Cities and Regions for Recycling and Sustainable Resource Management Genel Sekreteri Bayan Françoise Bonnet'i sahneye davet ediyorum.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here, and I would like to thank all the persons involved in this Congress. I will try not to be too long because I think that we have some delay, and hopefully a lot of my message were already presented in the previous presentation. I'm sorry to tell you that I didn't have a red-white dress, but I have the clock. So, Christophe, I have a red-white clock. And I'm really happy to be with you in Turkey also. I have been asked to concentrate my presentation on roles and responsibilities. I think that most of the key elements have been already expressed, but I think it's better to say it twice than never. Just first of all, I would like to give you a little presentation outline. So I will introduce a little bit my organization where I'm working for, European background, and afterwards more on local and regional competencies. A little part, of course, also about extended producer responsibility, because in Europe it is a key element in our waste management. So ACR Plus, it is an association of cities and regions for sustainable management of waste and resources, created a little bit more than 20 years ago in 1994, when at the EU level we had the new packaging directive, so asking municipalities to have a separate collection for packaging. And so they were a little bit afraid and they didn't know how to tackle the problem. And so some of municipalities and cities in Europe decided to create the association in order to exchange information and good practices. So we are in more than 23 countries. We represent more or less 1,100 municipalities. Well, at the level of the Turkish country, I've heard this morning it's not a lot, but at least we represent a lot of different legal organizations. And we don't act only in Europe, but also in the all Mediterranean countries. So we have also members in Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria mainly. And what it's important to know is that all cities and regions are members on a voluntary basis. So it's really a political decision. They want to be ambitious. They want to have strong waste and resource management on their territory, and so they decide to be one of our members. I also represent here what we offer to our members, a weekly newsline, conferences, publications, technical publication, of course, regarding resource and waste management, webinars, and we are involved in different EU projects. I don't know why. Yeah. And one famous is the European Week for Waste Reduction, and I invite all municipalities and other stakeholders to be part of this project financed by the EU, trying to raise public awareness of the necessity to have separate collection schemes and more prevention policy regarding waste. We are also involved in a well-known Interreg project R4R, trying to have an harmonized data collection system on recycling. And recently, we created the Circular Europe Network, trying to help our members to be ambitious and to have strong circular economy strategy on their territory. You are maybe aware of the fact that circular economy is really the smart concept nowadays, and we are convinced that also local and regional authorities are to be part of the game, and they must be part of the game because they defend public interest. And so it is very important that they play a strong role in order to have more and more the internalization of the environmental impact in our economy. So, from waste to resource is our diktat, let's say, in our association, and that's why we were created. We really believe that we have to go towards a circular economy to have more resource efficiency. And that's why our linear economy is at the end, we hope, and that we have to do everything in order to boost circular economy and to close the loop. So it's, of course, end of pipe, trying to manage waste in a proper way and to have more recycling rate, but it starts from the beginning, trying to boost also the good product, to use the good product and to boost producers to put on the market the good product. Not an easy task. So this is what we would like to achieve. Well, I don't know in which horizon, but at least sometime. It was, I think, already mentioned more than once that we don't have the choice. So we have to do it, and as soon as we do it, we will lose maybe less money and less health problem. Part of our conviction, and also I think it was shared before, is that we must have an integrated sustainable waste and resource management on our territories. So you see on the graph that you have to combine social, economic and environmental aspects, but also policy aspects. The main driver is the waste hierarchy, and you have to involve all stakeholders. And it is true when you are at the national level, but when you are also at a more local level, that you have to have in mind this global system. Very important also to have the operational aspect well developed. It was already mentioned before, and a key element for waste management is, of course, the separate collection systems. We are convinced that local and regional authorities are key actors. I mentioned here different instruments that we can use as local actors. Of course, it depends on your competencies in your own countries, but even if you have one of those competences, you can already do a lot, and you have to combine them. You don't have to think that you just have to work by silos and not combine all of them. So when you think about your separate collection systems, when it is combined with a pay-as-you-throw system, you will see that you will achieve very good results. So planning is crucial. I think it was already mentioned, but this is really important also to have the state of art. So what is the situation now, and how can I have to, what I have to do in order to reach objectives? So this is part of the planification objective and where we are. Of course, what are infrastructure? What are there? What is needed? And it was mentioned also before, don't look at only at local level. We always say that we are more powerful when we are more together. So if we have big costs, it's better to share it with other municipalities, especially regarding infrastructures. Don't oversize infrastructure, because otherwise it is a barrier for the achievement of your targets regarding recycling and prevention. So we are facing big problem in Europe with the overcapacity of incinerators, and in a lot of countries, it's a barrier because you have to feed your infrastructure, and so you don't have any interest to have better recycling rate and less quantity of waste produced. So it is really important to have a good strategy, well tailored. And of course, the financement of everything. It was mentioned before. So, European background. I think that one of good things at Europe, at least at the EU, that they boost environmental law in the beginning of the 70s and end of the 60s. And we have quite a good legal framework. Of course, each member state, they have their own implementation. It's called the subsidiarity principle, so you don't have to give all the obligation directly to the member states, but we have really strong drivers in the legal framework that we have at European level. And I think that one of the key one is the polluter pay principle. When you produce a waste, you pollute, and so you should pay for what you have produced, because afterwards we have to, local authorities or other, they have to pay, and there is a cost to collect and to treat the waste you produced. And of course, I can come back also later on the extended producer responsibility, that the producer is considered as responsible because it put on the market a certain kind of product, but it's part of the polluter pays principle also. So you have different very strong and important principle. Precautionary principle is also important because as Christophe mentioned before, we know that we don't have choice, and otherwise it will cost much more than what it costs today if we do nothing. So it's part of the precautionary principle also. Cooperation and participation. Better to be together and to build up something together than having too much infrastructure, that costs too much. And so I cannot read everything, but yeah, producer responsibility is also part of the solution, because as I mentioned before, if you completely close the loop, it's also what you put on the market that create at the end the waste. And we know that we are still facing a big problem of over packaging for a lot of products, for example. So at EU level, we have different directives, so European law, let's say. I don't want to go into details, but I think that because you are in an accession process, you know quite well this acquis communautaire, we say it in French, and with a lot of very strong drivers, legal drivers. And they are key when you want to have a very efficient waste management on your territory. So just to have an overview about what is the waste production at European level. So you see on the left the overall waste treatment, and on the right you have the municipal waste treatment. So you see that we don't have a lot of landfilling, but we have incineration. This is, I think, a big difference with Turkey, and quite an interesting recycling rate. I can skip this because I think that we have seen it already. This is also very interesting to see that at EU level they try to have projection and to give, as a legal driver, recycling target objective. And they try to have projections in order to fix on a realistic way, but strong driver, okay, you have to reach, I mean, to each member state, this level of recycling rate. And afterwards, of course, member states, they have to have their national plan, and afterwards they have to get all the actors involved in their policy, including the municipalities. I don't know why this slide is here, but it was not the local competencies, but more national competencies. But very interesting slide. You can see that a key driver, but I want to repeat what Christophe mentioned before. You don't need only one instrument, but a mix of different instruments, but one very important and very efficient, it was scientifically proved by this graph, high tax on landfill. Like that, you can divert an important amount of waste from landfilling. And you see that in the countries where you have very high charge, so on the right, you have also the lowest rate of landfilling. This is also to show you at national level when you fix a landfill tax. I mean national level, but in certain member states it's also decided at regional level, like for example in Belgium, but it's upper level than municipalities in general. And you see that it's very efficient. You can see the comparison between Austria and France regarding landfill tax. An important element also for that is that the benefit of this tax should be used to improve your waste management. So, for example, recently in Brussels, they decided to implement a tax on incineration, and the benefit of the tax goes directly to the inter-municipality dealing with waste management in order to improve their sorting plants and recycling plants. So this is important to have this kind of policy. Of course, depending on the member state, the following competencies are usually supported by national or regional authorities. So there is an obligation to have a waste prevention and waste management policy at the EU level, EU legislation. So you need to have a national one, but you can also have a local one or a regional one helping to get the result of the national one achieved. So it's not because you have a national one that you cannot combine it with a more local one. EPR schemes, usually they are managed at national level, a global legal framework, and legal and economic incentives toward municipalities. And this is also, I think, a very key element. In a lot of member states, we notice that when you have the carrots for municipalities, they are also boosted to be the good student of the class and to improve their systems. And you have different systems that can help. But for example, you mentioned that you need bring centers, that you need more bring centers in your country. In Wallonia, for example, it's a region in Belgium, some times ago, they decided to reward municipalities who reach a certain level of waste production per capita, so maximum levels, that if they don't go upper, they receive more money to implement bring centers. So this is a way to have municipalities more involved and trying to do their best. This is okay. Usually, I mean, it's the rule mentioned here is, I think, common for all member states of the European Union, that municipalities are legally responsible for the organization of household waste management. So collection and treatment, not only collection, but both. And this is a general public interest service. It is commonly accepted by everybody. You can delegate this general public interest service, but under certain conditions. And especially, this means that you need to have strong public procurement legislation, because it is linked, because it's a question of public interest. And usually, so it is regulated through municipal bylaws. I don't know why it does like... Yeah. Municipality decides who collects what kind of waste and when and how. So they have quite, let's say, an important autonomy. And I think that in most of the EU countries, it is an historical heritage. That is, the communes, the municipalities, they were independent and they had competencies, and they fight to keep their competencies. And we see that regarding waste management, it is key to get them on board, because they are the closest power to the citizens. And we have to also be aware that citizens are also consumers, so you can do a lot with them, especially regarding public awareness and regarding prevention. So they have their own services, or as Christophe mentioned before, intermunicipal service, private companies after tendering, because we are in the scope of a public interest service, and no one is allowed to collect waste without assignment from the municipality. So we have a very strong legal framework. So a little overview, how it works, usually. And of course, we have big differences between member states, and it was, you could see on the graph with the different performances on waste treatment. But the overview, the graph, the system is more or less always the same, but not everywhere you have very efficient EPR systems, and this makes a big difference between member states where you have higher or not so good selective collection rates. And so most of the time municipalities, they collect and they treat municipal waste under the supervision of regional or national authorities. So the municipal level is of key importance because they are in close contact with citizens. It allows optimal community service. They can create market conditions, and we know that nowadays creating local jobs is also very, very important. And especially in Europe, 90% of the economical activities are from SMEs. So when you are aware of what you have on your territory and you can involve your SMEs, your local companies, you can create jobs. And of course, the way of financing all this cost is indirectly by the public through municipalities' taxes. Local competencies allow you also to have pay-as-you-throw systems. And for that, I would like to mention the Italian case. Since I think 3 or 4 years, you have a national law asking municipalities to implement pay-as-you-throw systems on their territory. And in the north of Italy, they show it's very little community, very little municipalities, that when you have this kind of systems, you can really increase the selective collection rate and decrease the residual waste. So it's a very efficient system. And you don't need to have so difficult system. In Flanders, you just have, you pay your residual bag much more than the bag where you can put the selective waste like PMD, cans and flatters, HDP bottles. So you can do it with a very simple measure, and it is really efficient. And this is also, we will speak a lot about Flanders, but it's true that you have beautiful example at very local level, and this is a case where you can see the evolution of what has been possible thanks to a combination of different legal and economic instruments with the umbrella of the regions, with also the willingness of the local authorities. And okay, it took some years, but you can see now the results. And this is achievable, this is feasible. So, some advice. It was already mentioned, but I think it's important to repeat it. Make waste for disposal expensive, otherwise it's too easy. You know, you prefer to start with the short-term solution. So you put everything in landfill because it's cheap. But on a long-term vision, it will be more expensive for you. But yeah, you are elected, you know, for 4 or 5 years. So it's better to choose the short-term solution, but it's not the best one. The polluter pays principle should be the main driver for all the stakeholders around the circle. Of course, as mentioned, collected separately, and we know that a lot of consultancies and waste managers made surveys, and they showed that when you collect at source and that you sort as soon as possible, you have better quality and quantity, and afterwards you can sell it on a better price. At ECR Plus, we just finished a survey on the paper collection, and for one of our members who is the PRO, the French PRO for paper, graphic paper. And it's so obvious that when you collect paper in a certain way and with certain infrastructure or door-to-door collection, you have a better quality. And on the market, we know that now used paper is, everybody knows that you can reuse it at least 7 times to produce paper. So we know that it's economically sustainable to have good selective collection of paper. Unfortunately, it's not yet well implemented. So very important to have collected very separate collection system well defined. And of course, avoid organic waste. Organic waste, the humid fraction, always can be treated apart, and avoid to mix them with other waste and dry waste that can be a very important resource. Prevention. Prevention has to be done at local level, and it's key. Local level, why? Because they are the close to citizens, and we know that you can ask producers to produce in a better way, but not less. So don't ask them to make prevention about over packaging. It is a duty for local authorities. Producing waste in a big quantity is not a solution on a mid-long-term perspective. So we have to have our citizens at local level aware of that. And of course, the organic fraction can be decreased by home composting, and it's funny, I don't know if you are aware of that, but in certain municipalities in France, in Belgium also, municipalities offer chicken to people, households who had a little garden, and so the chicken they eat the organic waste, and they decrease the quantity of waste put on the selective collection system. And it works, it works. And I would like just to mention for you a very important message, that it's a question of political will for a lot of this achievement. One of our members is a small city in the southeast of France, Besançon, 100,000 inhabitants, and 5 years ago they had to make some maintenance in one of the oven of the incinerators, and they decided, no, we don't want to put some money to this, and we prefer to try to have integrated solid waste management and waste management on our territory in order to decrease the quantity of waste we produced, in order to be able to say that we don't need this oven anymore. And in 3 years, they achieved the goal, and so they put some money with the help of the EU funds, but little one. And a very interesting point is that they didn't promote the selective collection of bio-waste, but they focused on the prevention. And so they promoted the home composting solution, and also they tried to have a very strong prevention campaign in order to decrease at source the quantity of waste produced, and they achieved their goal in 3 years. So it is, I think, it speaks for itself that when you have the political will, and when you have at community level all the stakeholders together to achieve a goal, you can do it. So I don't know if I still have some time, but I would like to say 2 words about the EPR schemes, because I think that in the last 20 years in Europe, it helped to have better selective collection rates and better recycling rates. Of course, we have different systems. Not all of them are so efficient, but we have, I don't know if I have to say best practices or good practices, but I think that at least we can learn a lot from existing systems, and it shows that it helped a lot also for municipalities to finance their sorting plants, their selective collection schemes, and their treatment infrastructure. So the historic of the EPR at EU level, It started at the 19th, and nowadays we are, at EU level, they are rethinking a little bit the legal framework in order to have better systems. And normally, by the end of this year, we should have a new legal framework. But I will go very quickly. I think it was mentioned before by Taka that we have at least 4 waste streams under EPR at EU level, and it gives quite interesting results. Of course, the packaging one is the most important as regards municipal waste and the involvement of municipalities, because packaging is a waste that you produce on a daily basis. And you really need the cooperation of municipalities for this kind of waste. But it's interesting to see that even if we have a compulsory EPR system for certain waste and resource product stream, some member states decided to implement other one because they thought that it was a very efficient way to have better recycling and selective collection. So you have it for tires, for example, for kitchen hauls, agricultural films, and France is the country where you can find the most important EPR schemes number, with also furniture and textiles. So this is an overview of the EPR system in Europe, and you can see that you have quite it's not all the member states. It was by Deloitte, who was commissioned by the Commission to conduct this study, and they selected some of the member states, but already with that, those member states, you can see the differences of how they implement the EPR schemes, but it is clear that is one of the systems who gave very good results in the past 20 years in terms of selective collections and recycling rate. So, some conclusion word. A well-designed legal framework is needed where roles and competencies are clearly defined, and so with not overlapping, but each stakeholders of the value chain, let's say, is aware of what he has to do and is helped by the upper level or the lower level. Legal and economic incentives are needed along the value chain. We all know that when you have money in the game, it's always easier. Each level of competencies has an important role to play and is complementary to the others. And the local level is crucial since it is the closest level to the citizens, who are also the consumers. I thank you, and I invite you to have a look to our website, and if municipalities are ready to be more involved in their waste management, and if they want to be ambitious and to share information and good practices in order to improve their system, they are most welcome to join our association. Thank you.
Evet, değerli konuklar, biz de Bayan Bonet'e özellikle Avrupa'daki atık yönetimiyle ilgili verdiği bilgiler Avrupa Birliği yolundaki Türkiye için çok değerliydi. Önemli noktalarda çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Şimdi yemek arası vereceğiz. Birazcık programımızı sarkıttığımız için yemek aramızı kısa tutmak durumundayız. Bu sebeple sizleri saat 14.15'te tekrar salonumuzda bekliyor olacağız. Afiyet olsun.